Does eating oatmeal increase your toxic load? This might come as a shock to you, but the answer is yes if you're eating the wrong kind. Here's why you might want to think twice before eating oatmeal. Number one, conventional oats are sprayed with glyphosate. What is glyphosate? It's an herbicide that is the number one most heavily used in the entire world. It's the active ingredient in Roundup, which was developed and introduced by Monsanto in 1974. It's basically used heavily on crops that are genetically modified to withstand high levels of glyphosate, known as Roundup Ready crops, which includes crops like GMO corn, soy, sugar beets, and cotton. Glyphosate and its metabolite, AMPA or amino ethyl phosphonic acid, accumulate in soil. And over 125,000 tons of glyphosate were applied in the U.S. as of 2014. And that was clearly a long time ago, and the number is still going up. Glyphosate is used as a harvesting aid to desiccate crops, which is why it's sprayed on wheat, barley, and oats a few days before they're harvested in order to dry them to make it easier to harvest. All right, let's talk about the toxicity of glyphosate to humans. Number one, it is genotoxic. It's toxic to DNA. It causes inflammation and has been shown to affect lymphocyte function, which is one of the reasons why it impairs the immune system. So it's immunotoxic. Evidence shows that it's also neurotoxic. So there's an increased risk of autism in children who are exposed in utero, and also a higher incidence of intellectual disabilities with childhood exposures to glyphosate, and decreased birth weight, as well as preterm labor. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, has classified glyphosate as a probable human carcinogen, and studies found increased risk of multiple myeloma, which is a type of cancer of the blood, in people who spray glyphosate onto crops. So the people who work in the fields and spray this herbicide onto crops have an increased risk of different types of blood cancer. And as of 2024, there are over 4,200 Roundup cancer lawsuits that are still pending in the state of California, mainly over the issue of whether or not glyphosate causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and related disorders. But as if the cancer concern weren't enough, glyphosate consumption at levels that EPA says are safe are actually known to disrupt the gut microbiome. Gut health is absolutely paramount. You cannot be healthy unless your gut is intact, because if you have changes in the microbiome or in gut permeability, this can actually increase the toxic absorption of chemicals through the foods that we ingest as well as the drinks. So make sure your gut health is in check and minimize the consumption of glyphosate if you want to keep your gut happy. The number two reason you might want to think twice about eating oatmeal is chlormequat. This is another pesticide, toxic pesticide, of course, in the lineup of all the reasons why oats, at least conventional oats especially, might not be the optimal choice. Chlormequat is a quaternary ammonium salt that is a pre-growth regulating chemical that the EPA just allowed in food. Before, it was used in different ornamental plants, but not in food. Now the EPA is allowing it. So why the heck is it in there? Well, it basically prevents oat plants from growing too tall and breaking off, therefore increasing crop yield and profitability for farmers. But this comes at the cost of our health. Why is chlormequat an issue? Well, several animal studies show chlormequat is embryotoxic, meaning it is toxic to the embryo, to the developing embryo, and it prevents the growth of the embryo and also causes embryonic malformations. Yes, malformations, so birth defects. And the EPA is allowing this. It's also a toxic substance for development. So again, birth defects, skeletal malformations, and it is highly hazardous and technically shouldn't even be allowed in food. And ingestion of higher amounts of chlormequat can be fatal, and there are even cases of poisonings that resemble anticholinesterase type insecticide poisonings, such as with the pesticide paraquat. So there was a recent EWG study where they bought 13 non-organic or conventional oatmeal, granola, cereals, and other oat-based products, including one organic granola product, back in 2022. They found that Quaker's old-fashioned oats had the highest concentration of chlormequat, and other products also by Quaker that tested high include the Quaker Honey Nut Oatmeal Squares and Quaker Maple and Brown Sugar Instant Oatmeal, which I used to eat. Number 3 reason why you might want to think twice before eating oatmeal is gluten contamination. Oats are often processed right alongside gluten-containing crops like wheat, rye, and barley. So therefore, there is a high chance of cross-contamination in the field during transport, during storage, as well as during the milling and processing, packaging. So pretty much every step of the production process of oat products can be a gateway for gluten contamination. So should you avoid oats if you're gluten-free? Yes, unless you look for gluten-free oats. Studies show that up to 88% of oat products in Canada were contaminated above the Gluten Codex Alimentarius cutoff of 20 ppm. Number 4 reason to think twice before eating oats are the added flavors. Flavors are chemicals that are added to foods to make them more palatable or to make them taste better. What happens is they can alter our brain chemistry and affect, over time, our perception of food and possibly make us crave flavored food over the real thing because it is changing the way that we process taste and flavor in our foods. Another issue with flavors are the lack of transparency because companies don't need to disclose what's in their flavor because they have proprietary protection. Some people can be sensitive to different compounds in flavors, and in my opinion, flavors are overused. They're used to mask the off taste of poor quality ingredients, and they're pretty much in almost every processed food. And it makes you wonder, why does it need to be flavored? For example, if it's something like an almond milk should just taste like almonds. You don't need flavor in there. If there's flavor, then that's a red flag that they're probably trying to mask something. Not to mention that artificial flavors are made of chemicals that are not even found in nature. So there's no telling what health effects they're having on us over the long term. And natural flavors makes it seem like they're better for us, mainly because they just come from natural sources. But in fact, they don't even need to come from food sources. Some natural flavors have chemicals that come from wood ash. So the number 1 tip to easily avoid flavors is to avoid eating processed foods. Eat whole, unprocessed foods, and you'll avoid a whole lot of toxic exposure. Reason number 5 to think twice before eating oatmeal is the added sugar. One tiny packet of Quaker instant apples and cinnamon oatmeal contains over 2.5 teaspoons of sugar. And of course, if you check the ingredients list, it also contains natural flavor. I used to eat these for breakfast and get hungry an hour later. Well, I'm not surprised now, but back then I had no idea why. But once I switched to a higher protein intake at breakfast, then those issues went away. What about some better oatmeal options? Now that you know about all the issues and reasons why you might want to take a pause before you consume oat products, especially conventional ones, is that we need to be even more watchful of the oat products that we're feeding our children, because their tiny bodies cannot withstand all of these added pesticides, herbicides, flavors, sugars, and processing agents and all these other chemicals that are added to them. So we need to be extra careful. But as a parent, what can we do? Well, number 1, we can start with organic oats, since a recent EWG study found almost no glyphosate in organic oats. This study also found that the amount of glyphosate in conventional oat products has declined, but it's not completely gone, so we still need to be vigilant. But unfortunately, organic alone isn't always enough, because organic farming is designed to decrease pesticide exposure and synthetic chemical exposure, but not necessarily heavy metals or other environmental contaminants. Check out my video here where I talk with a food safety expert about organic food. So in my opinion, the best solution for parents who want to protect their kids and still allow them to eat oat products is to look for Clean Label Project Purity Award tested foods, which have been tested for pesticides, heavy metals, plasticizers, industrial contaminants, and it really uses data and actual measurements to give parents the extra assurance of purity. in what we're feeding our kids. Because at this point, we really need to see the numbers and the data to know what's truly in our food, because companies don't always tell us, and then we end up finding out about it later and hoping that we weren't harmed. If you're on a mission to protect your family from environmental toxins, just click or tap the screen to watch my videos all about non-toxic baby and home swaps. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you'll see videos that I'm uploading every single week, and thanks so much for watching.